This is the Leadership Lens, where we say the hard truths and fix the system. Today, we're looking at how to navigate the post-ESSER fiscal cliff without managing a decline. And this is a conversation a lot of leaders are either avoiding or are about to be forced into. For the last few years, K-12 has lived in a yes culture. With federally funds flowing, many of us had the resources to try everything. We hired interventionists, we bought software that promised miracles, and we expanded our reach. And for a while, that felt like progress, but the gold rush is over. The fiscal cliff isn't just a theory anymore. It's a reality, and the shift is happening fast. Leaders, go with me on this one. If your plan is to walk into your next board meeting and propose across the board 5% cuts, you aren't leading, you're just managing the decline. And managing the decline is not the same as building a system that holds. So if we're cutting across the board, what are we actually doing? When we look at building a system that holds, we focus on 3 specific anchors: information, people, and fiscal ROI. That framework still applies even here. To secure that 3rd anchor, we have to master strategic abandonment. It's the hardest skill for a school leader to learn, but it's the only way to make sure your district thrives when federal scaffolding is removed. Because not everything that can or should come with you. If you look across districts coast to coast right now, analysts are seeing a recurring pattern called bridges to nowhere. These were ESSER-funded programs that provided temporary relief but never built permanent systemic capacity. They solved for the moment, but not for the system. They were band-aids on structural wounds, and now that the funding is drying up, those band-aids are falling off and exposing what's underneath. So, we use a simple logic. If we cross-reference every dollar spent with a student-specific growth metric, then the budget becomes a moral document that protects your core mission, and that changes how you make decisions. Think of it like a master garden. You don't cut every branch by 2 inches. That just stunts the whole plant. You cut the dead wood so the healthy branches have the room they need to thrive. That's the difference between reduction and refinement. So, how do you actually make those decisions with clarity? To do this, you need a framework for strategic ROI, a way to see what stays and goes. Every program in your budget sits in one of 4 quadrants based on its cost and its impact on student growth. And once you see it this way, it gets very clear. First, the golden zone. High impact, low cost. These are your non-negotiables. Second, strategic investments. High impact, high cost. This is usually your people. You don't cut here. You look for ways to make the positions more effective. You refine, you don't remove. Third, administrative debris. Low impact, low cost. These are the legacy contracts no one uses, but the district keeps paying for, and they quietly drain your system. And finally, your surgical target. Low impact, high cost. This is where strategic abandonment begins. This is where leadership gets real. Remember, your job as a leader is to ensure the environment allows the instructional triangle, interaction between the teacher, the student, and the content to actually work. Everything comes back to that. If you are funding programs that don't help the teacher reach the student, you are creating a systemic leak, and leaks compound over time. Remember, you are the atmospheric pressure responsible for clearing the debris so your resources can reach the classroom floor. And if the pressure isn't right, the system can't function. So let's make this actionable. If this is something you are experiencing right now or anticipate coming up for you, we have a micro move, which are small intentional shifts designed to help you reclaim your leadership so that you can build a system that holds. Your micro move: perform a true ROI audit this week. This is a clarity move. Pick your most expensive instructional software contract. Now, don't just ask for a usage report, which is just a count of how many students logged in. That number doesn't tell you impact. Instead, ask for the active dosage data. Cross-reference with your mid-year benchmark or growth scores. Now you're getting to the truth. What we're looking for is a specific correlation, and this is the key moment. If your students are hitting the required active dosage, meaning they are putting in the time, but they aren't showing the expected growth on your benchmarks, then you have a systemic mismatch. And that mismatch is telling you something important. Here's the pivot. You're paying for a tool that can't carry the weight of your students' needs, and that's a leadership decision point. When you have a high-cost contract for a tool that is either sitting empty or failing to produce, we call that a ghost license. And most districts have more of these than they realize. It's a phantom expense that haunts your budget without helping your children, and it pulls resources away from what actually works. It's time to stop the leak. Take that data to your board and show them that the investment isn't producing a return. This is how you lead with evidence. You stop the drift and you start aligning your fuel to your fire, and that's how you move from reaction to strategy. Let me bring this home. Leader to leader. Budget season doesn't have to be a season of loss. It can be a season of clarity if you approach it the right way. When you prune the things that aren't working, you finally give the things that are working the room they need to grow. That's how systems get stronger, not smaller. I'm not saying all this without some way to help you out. I put together a strategic abandonment matrix. It's a guide to help you identify structural gaps and categorize your programs. You can find that in the description below. Use it as a guide to your next move. It's micro move time. This is the Leadership Lens. I'm Longino. Let's learn and grow together.